All right, everyone, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm starting right on the dot. Look at that. I got everything set up exactly as planned. Okay, so a couple of housekeeping notes before I jump into the content here. This is ForeFlight for power users. This is intended to be a little more advanced session than our ForeFlight fundamentals. They are considered more or less like companion seminars. So if you did attend our fundamentals session this morning, this should be a good follow-up to that to give you some new insight, new tips and tricks, some new functionalities and workflows that we didn't get to touch on in the fundamentals course. Okay, so I am Jeremy Lippard. I'm part of the customer education team here at ForeFlight. If you've been to some of the other forums, you may have seen me also. You may have seen one of our other team members. Our job is to do things like this at air shows. If you've watched some of the webinars on our foreflight.com/videos, you may recognize my voice. I've done several of those. We do a lot of customer outreach, customer education, primarily in the corporate space, in the military space, but we do a lot of GA work as well. This is a power users course, so you probably don't need a lot of detail about ForeFlight subscription levels. If you're unaware or you did need a refresher, ForeFlight is offered as a subscription-based product. We offer it in 3 tiers, Basic, Pro, and Performance. You can read what's offered there, short bullet points. It's not everything, but it gives you a good overview. If you're a VFR pilot or you're getting your PPL license, Basic is probably all you need. If you're flying IFR regularly, or if you're operating in an area with some hazardous terrain, we recommend upgrading to Pro. Performance has a lot of bells and whistles for very experienced pilots, people operating in the commercial space. If you'd like to see specific demonstrations of any of these, again, please feel free to ask me after the show, or you can find one of us in the booth. All right, so going into what we're here for today. So for the power users, rather than just go feature by feature through ForeFlight, which is kind of how we set up the fundamentals, our idea here was to come up with 5 scenarios that would not be uncommon for a pilot to face and how you can use ForeFlight in those scenarios. All 5 of these may not apply to you. Ideally, at least 1 or 2 of them match how you fly, match your experience, or at least provide some insight that you were unaware of. I will be going fairly quickly through this because the idea is that all of you know how to basically use ForeFlight. Because of that, you're welcome to follow along, but just as a heads up, I may be going a little too quickly to really follow along. We've tried to improve that experience a little bit, and I'll explain how in just a moment. Don't try to scan these right now because there's 5 or 4 of them on the screen. The way we've done this to try to make this a little more interactive, just being aware that we only have an hour, and I'm trying to go through all this material. You may not be able to follow along. For each of the scenarios I've planned, except for our custom scenario, that's going to be Route 3, I've made a QR code there. Inside that QR code for each route, there's an embedded flight plan file. And I'll just go to the next one to show you if you'd like to scan this. If you scan this with a device that has ForeFlight on it, so an iPad or iPhone, this should execute automatically and populate ForeFlight with that flight plan. So the very first route I'm going to speak about is an unfamiliar airport. I'm flying from, I believe it's Aspen into Colorado Springs. And if your device has ForeFlight, you should be able to scan this and open this directly in ForeFlight. This is something that is, I'm going to call this experimental, because really the only time we ever did it was yesterday. It did work. Hopefully it's working right now. I got a thumbs up. If it doesn't work, I apologize. So this is based on some customer feedback that people really wanted at least to visually follow along on their device, but it went too quickly to hand jam in all the stuff I was talking about. So I went ahead and did this. If this is successful, hopefully we can continue to do this and things like this. So my very first scenario is I'm planning a flight into an airport that is unfamiliar to me. You can imagine any airport you like. In my example, I'm imagining Colorado Springs. I'm going to do all my pre-flight briefing to make sure I have as much situational awareness as possible before I take off. So yes, I've never been to this airport, but I want to have as much on-the-ground knowledge as possible before I take off, so when I get to that airport, I'm not completely surprised by everything I'm looking at. So at its most basic, and this is what should have loaded when you loaded that QR code, at its most basic, this is just a direct route. I'm planning a direct route from Aspen into Colorado Springs. Just to give you a heads up of what you're looking at on my screen, if your screen looks different, I have extended center lines enabled. That's why you can see those runways extending out from the center line. This is something you can toggle on and off in settings. I leave this on by default. I just prefer it. I've also disabled everything on my VFR, on my aeronautical map layer, except for airports and airspace. So if you're following along and you see a lot more stuff, that's probably why. And again, you don't need to disable these things. I'm just doing this to declutter this to make it easier to see. So all we're looking at, direct route between Airport 1, Airport 2, and extended center lines toggled on, airspace and airports. That's all we're looking at. So I want to start building up my situational awareness. In this scenario, I may not have even left the house yet. Maybe I'm in the FBO. This is all pre-flight. And then as we go through, we're going to go through pre-flight, in-flight, etc. So I'm going to start building up my situational awareness. The first thing I want to do is pull up the weather information for my departure airport. All of you should be comfortable with, I'm hoping, comfortable with accessing weather on ForeFlight. And as I go through this, this may not be the way you do it. This is the way I do it. And there's several different ways you can access weather. I'm going to start by just tapping on the departure airport, and I can do this from my Maps tab. If this is the first forum you've been with us this AirVenture, we've added these little animations here just because the lighting in here isn't great, and I know in the back it's hard to see details on this. Hopefully that gives you some more perspective on what part of the screen I'm referring to. I'm tapping on my departure airport. Right-hand side of the screen, the information pane will slide in, and I can immediately preview all my comms information. I can get my ATIS, I can get my ground, I get my tower frequencies, all of that stuff. In this situation, if I'm assuming that this is my home airport, I might have all that stuff committed to memory. If it's not my home airport, this is where I can access it. If you're following along and you did that exact same thing and you tapped on an airport and the information pane slid in from the side, you may see weather first. You may not see info. That's another setting that you can toggle on show weather first. If you have show weather first toggled on, anytime you tap on an airport, weather information will be shown first. In my example, that wasn't toggled on, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on weather, and I can see all my weather information here. Everything in ForeFlight for weather is color coded. So at a glance, I can look at that METAR and see it's green. It's VFR. I can look at that METAR and see it was reported, in this case, that's 54 minutes old. So maybe I do want to wait for a more current METAR, but that's what's being reported by that airport. So everything looks okay at first glance. What catches my eye, though, if you notice in the very bottom of my weather report, my density altitude is showing as 10,892 feet. It's also color-coded to be amber. When you see amber in ForeFlight, pay attention. It might not be something that you can't just ignore, but we want you to pay attention to it. If you see red, really pay attention. But in this case, ForeFlight's telling me, hey guy, take a closer look at this. So I see my density altitude is listed at 10,892 feet. For my particular scenario, let's say that density altitude makes me uncomfortable. Maybe it's close to my the service ceiling for my aircraft. Maybe I'm just not comfortable with it being, the density altitude being that high, whatever. I may want to replan my flight based on my level of discomfort. So ForeFlight's not going to stop you from taking off with this. We're just telling you, take a second look at this. For me, this may make me too uncomfortable to take off. Maybe I'm flexible on my departure. Maybe I have some variables I can adjust. What I want to do is look at my daily weather forecast, just get a quick idea. Right now, it is, I took this screenshot, I believe, right before, this would have been right at 2 p.m. Central. Maybe I want to see if the weather is going to cool down a little bit. It might be a time in the future that's safer for me to depart. So I'll go ahead and open up my daily forecast. I'm hoping everyone's used this tool before. This is really useful. You can do this anywhere on Earth, by the way. It's not just airports. Anywhere on the map, tap and hold, and you'll see a window pop up and you can tap weather and you'll see a 10-day forecast for that location at which you tap and held. I use this when I'm on vacation and stuff and I want to see if it's going to rain tomorrow. I just tap and hold where I'm at and then I view the 10-day forecast. So this is a 10-day weather forecast with an aviation bent. We can see Tuesday through Saturday. I could scroll down to see all 10 days. Let's assume that I'm departing on a Tuesday. I want to check Wednesday morning, see what that's going to look like. I'll go ahead and tap on Wednesday. And what I can see is at that time in the afternoon, this is still going to be pretty high density altitude. Along the bottom, this is something that also gets overlooked often. This is an hour by hour breakdown of my conditions, color coded to match your expectations. So if it's green, it's VFR. Blue for MVFR, IFR, LIFR, etc. So just at a quick glance, I can see, okay, it's going to be VFR conditions, it looks like, for that Wednesday and Thursday, and in the morning it'll be cooler, so I'll just push my departure time rather than this afternoon. I'll depart tomorrow morning. Again, you may ignore all this. This depends on how you fly, where you fly, what aircraft you're flying in, your own personal minimums. We're just gathering as much information as possible. So I'm going to assume I push my departure to tomorrow morning. I'm going to continue my pre-departure briefing. I want to look at my runways for my home airport or the airport from which I'm departing. I'm still looking at my airport information pane. There's a runway tab there. I'm going to go ahead and tap on runways. And for any airport, you'll see all of the runways available at that airport. If you have a data connection, so in this example, I'm imagining I'm doing this at home or in my FBO, so I have a data connection. If you're connected to a Sentry or a Stratus and have an ADS-B connection, you'll receive weather there also. What I want to highlight is I can see which runway has the most favorable winds because I have a data connection. This is where I'm probably going to go ahead and depart from. So I'll go ahead and tap on that runway, and I can preview all of the information for that specific runway at this airport here. Let's say this is all fine, the distances are fine, conditions are fine, I'm good to go with everything. I'm going to continue my pre-departure briefing, increase my situational awareness by returning back to my main airport information pane. This, if you're following along at this exact airport, you will see this. If you've chosen to use a different airport, you may not. You'll notice there is a mountain icon there that lets me know at a glance that there is some potentially hazardous terrain or in the vicinity of this airport. If you're looking at an airport that shows that icon, what that means is there are terrain elevations of more than 1,500 feet within 10 nautical miles of that airport. If you tap on that, then you receive a breakdown of that airport's terrain information. We don't show this on every airport. This is only on airports in areas with potentially hazardous terrain. So I'm ready to begin finishing my pre-flight. I'm going to send my flight over to my Flights tab. I'll tap on Send To, and then I'll tap on Flights. And now I'm viewing all of my information in my Flights tab. I just planned that flight on my map. You can plan the flights here in the Flights tab also. This is going to be textual. You can just type in waypoints, airports, coordinates. You can plan that way. Whatever your preference, in the end, it's all going to be the same. So in my fake scenario here, I was a little worried about my aircraft's takeoff performance relative to the density altitude. Because of that, I want to double check all of my performance numbers before I taxi out onto the runway. So you'll notice on mine, I have these takeoff and landing buttons here. This is something that's available at the Performance Plus level. So if you don't see it, that's why. So Performance Plus subscribers have access to takeoff and landing performance analysis for piston aircraft. So you can see how your aircraft will perform on the runway you've selected based on weather conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on takeoff, and you can see all of my runway conditions are displayed there. Along the top of the screen, this is my takeoff. Basically, that's what I'm looking for. That's my takeoff performance. I want to make sure my runway length is greater than that. That's really what I'm looking for. All of the fields on here, oh, and then you'll see the weather that we're using for the analysis. That was based on the METAR 55 minutes ago. All of the fields in ForeFlight, and this goes for anything you're looking at, if the text is in blue, you can make edits. So if you ever see blue text, it's editable fields. If it's gray text, you can't edit it. So just for demonstration, this is probably not realistic, but it shows off how this works pretty well. I'm going to change my runway surface from dry paved, and you'll see our takeoff distance is listed at 2,066 feet. I'm going to go ahead and change this to wet grass. Obviously, it wouldn't happen overnight. We're not going to go from pavement to grass, but this shows this off pretty obviously. We have recalculated your takeoff distance. So this is part of the takeoff performance. Again, this is available to Performance Plus subscribers. I can do that with weather as well. So in this example, the METAR that's being used was 55 minutes old. That sounds weird. It was reported 55 minutes ago. Let's say in the intervening time, the winds have shifted, but it hasn't been updated on the METAR yet. I know because I'm on the field, these winds are no longer what's being reported. I can manually go in, and in this case, I'm going to adjust my wind direction. I returned this to dry pave, by the way. That's why it's 2066. I'm going to manually adjust the direction of the wind from 350 to 020, and we should see my takeoff distance change as a result. And this is how takeoff performance, it works for landing as well. It's a dynamic feature, takes into account your aircraft, current weather, all of those conditions to give you more situational awareness, more safety information prior to taking off. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and I can see a performance summary. So this is how ForeFlight is using, this is the data that's being used to calculate all that performance information. This can't be edited. This is OEM and POH information that's being used for the takeoff performance. So one of the last pre-flight things I'd like to do is if I'm going to be departing via a departure procedure, I can preview those right here. Right now I'm looking at my airport tab. I'm going to tap on my procedures. Left-hand side, I can see all of my procedure types. The green text here, whether it's FAA or Jeppesen, if it's shown in green, that means it's saved to your device, it's there for offline use, you don't need to worry about an internet connection. I'm going to open up my takeoff minimums. By tapping on my government takeoff minimums, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I can see all my takeoff minimums displayed here. Again, this is all part of my pre-departure, pre-flight process. I can see that if I'm using runway 33, there is an assigned departure. This is the SARD departure. I'm going to navigate back to my airports tab. Again, I'm just gathering this information as I prepare to depart. I'm going to navigate back to my airports tab. In my airports tab, once I'm back in my airports tab, I can see that I have the SARD 3 departure listed. I have both Jeppesen plates and FAA plates on my device. For this example, I'm going to use the Jeppesen plate. If I tap on that plate, I'm going to be able to display this on the map. You'll notice this little icon here that's send to map. If you don't see that, that is unavailable to basic subscribers. It's only Pro and Performance Plus subscribers. So I just want to view this in my plates tab. Once I tap on that, this is in my plates tab. In this example, you can also preview any NOTAMs by tapping on that red NOTAMs icon across the top. I'm going to view some additional functionality here. So as you're looking at a plate, and this goes for any plate in the plates tab, just tap on it anywhere on that plate. Once you tap on that, you'll see additional functionality appear. You'll see an annotation tool appear, and your instrument panel will be displayed. If you're sitting on the ground, the instrument panel is effectively meaningless. But if you are in the cockpit and you navigate to your plates tab, that still gives you some heads up situational awareness because that will be overlaid on top of your plate. So I can use the annotation tool if I need. I've zoomed in again. And what I can see here is my takeoff minimums are listed on that plate. So this is what I looked at when I was pre-planning. I have my Jeppesen plates. My takeoff minimums are displayed right here. That's what I've highlighted. Again, I'm a Performance Plus subscriber, so I've navigated back to my takeoff analysis. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that all of my performance numbers exceed those minimums, and they do. So again, this is just showing you how, if you are a Performance Plus subscriber, our takeoff analysis takes into account all of those details. You don't need to do that additional analysis. We have done that for you if you're operating piston aircraft. All right, so I'm fast forwarding a little bit. I'm en route. I've departed Aspen. Everything was safe. I waited till the next morning, all of that stuff. I'm progressing along my planned route. As we progress, ForeFlight will show us alerts en route. The first one I'm showing here is my destination weather frequency alert, and this will trigger as long as you have at least one waypoint in your route and the last route item is an airport. As long as that's true and you're flying along, this will trigger when you are within 20 nautical miles and 5,000 feet and below. So just situational awareness. You don't have to go fumbling around onto the airport diagram to find out the ATIS information. We will pop it up and tell you, hey, there's the ATIS information. This will also stay on the map until you tap it or it's replaced by a different alert. So if you miss it right away, it will stay there. It's audible too, so if you're connected to a Bluetooth headset, you'll hear it and see it. So this is just another example of an alert. This is our airspace alert. You'll notice our comms are popped up and displayed right there too. This alert is dynamic. So on my screen right now, it says Class C and 4.3 miles. This will count down as I approach the Class C. If I turn around and go the other way, it'll count back up. So this is dynamic. If you're calling into ATC and they're asking where you are, you can quickly glance at this and say, I'm 4.3 nautical miles. In this case, I guess I'm west, 4.3 nautical miles west of that airspace. This is also persistent. It's audible and visual. It will stay on the map until you tap on it. If you've been getting alerts that you find to be nuisances, it's not uncommon depending on where you fly. This is all customizable via settings. I'm in my universal settings. I've just tapped on more in settings. This is alphabetical. You'll notice alerts is here at the top. If you don't find it, you can just search for alerts. I'm going to open that up just to show you what the settings are. All of these can be toggled off. This one right here that I currently have toggled off, the terrain and obstacle alerts, that's something that is commonly, some people find it to be a nuisance, especially if you're operating helicopters. We may tell you something's an obstacle. We may say something's hazardous terrain when you as the pilot know it's not. So if you're frequently getting these alerts and they're just annoying you, you can turn them off. Just be aware that you've turned them off. So this is how you would do that. All right, so I've returned to my route. I've contacted ATC, and I want to brief some specific approach or arrival procedures. I'm going to reopen my FPL drawer, and in my flight plan drawer in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to go ahead and tap on the Procedure Advisor tool. You could do this in the Airport tab. You could do this in the Plates tab. I'm doing this right here because I'm flying the aircraft. I have my iPad open to my Maps tab. Look at the flight plan drawer, tap on Procedure. These are categorized by type there on the left-hand side. For this example, I'm just going to look at approach procedures into Colorado Springs. I'm imagining I'm doing this mid-flight. You can do this pre-flight too, however your workflow, whatever floats your boat. I'm going to go ahead and tap on my approach procedures. I will be shown all available approaches into Colorado Springs. I'm just going to scroll down to see some more. For this example, I'm going to select my visual approach into runway 35 right. I'll go tap on that. I'll select my pattern entry and traffic. I'll confirm this by selecting Add to Route. And that selected procedure is included in my route. This also includes the traffic pattern altitude, in this case because it's a visual approach. So all of that information has now been included on my route. It's displayed on my map too, so I can kind of sort of just fly that pattern. If you zoom into a destination airport and your aeronautical layer is active, again, this is one of those things that's always been in ForeFlight, but not everyone is aware it exists because they don't use it, the app, that way. Any airport, if you zoom all the way in, you can preview the runways, the taxiways, and other infrastructure available at that airport. So I've just zoomed in on my aeronautical map. And we can see all my taxiways are labeled there, my runways are labeled there, my hotspots are labeled there. I can still go ahead and tap on my airport icon. If you're flying into an unfamiliar airport, you know you need to get fuel, you need to find something to eat, you need to tie down, whatever the case may be. We can tap on our FBO button, and we can find additional information about FBOs at that field. So this was basically the idea of how you would pre-flight and then some tools en route when flying into an unfamiliar airport. Our next scenario is adding an extra passenger. So the idea is here, I've already done all that. I've already pre-flighted my route. I've planned my route. Everything is good to go. I'm satisfied with my plan. Last minute, I meet a new friend or two who wants a ride somewhere. So now I need to double check that I am within my appropriate weight and balance to make sure this will be a safe and efficient flight. So I'm going to try to do this in the quickest way possible. Again, there are several different ways to do this. If you don't do it this way, that's fine. So again, this is the power user, so hopefully you've already done this, and this is set up a weight and balance profile for your aircraft. If you haven't, this is something we'd be glad to do at the booth. I'm going to blaze through this portion really quickly, operating the assumption that you've already done it. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down while looking at my aircraft. In this case, this is my Cherokee 6. I'll go ahead and scroll down. There's an add weight and balance profile. If you've already done this, you'll see your weight and balance profile there. I'm going to go ahead and tap on add weight and balance profile. Pop-up window will appear, ask me how I want to do that. If you are using an aircraft that we at ForeFlight have already completed those templates for, you'll have access to that. That's what's actually this first one here. ForeFlight has already done that weight and balance. I don't need to do any additional work. If you're flying an aircraft that we haven't done this for yet, you'll have to build this from scratch. It's not overly difficult. All the information's in your POH. If you need help with it, that's one of the things we can do for you. I'm going to use my ForeFlight template, 6-seat standard arrangement. Everything here is automatically pre-filled out with the exception of my basic empty weight and my basic empty CG. This will be required to you will be required to manually input this information. Everything else, just verify it's correct from your POH. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to enter in my CG, I'm going to enter in my basic empty weight, and I have verified that everything else is correct. Again, I'm just kind of assuming all of you have already done that already for your aircraft. My profile is now complete. At the very bottom of the screen there, I'm just going to show this. I'm not going to do this, but if your template, if you're building this from scratch, this is something you'll do. At the very bottom of the screen, you'll see add station. So as you're building, you can just add different stations. Front row, second row, third row seats, cargo area, whatever. Once you tap on that, it's pretty straightforward. You have station type, you'll tap on that, enter in the CG. If there's any weight limits for those stations, you can enter all of those in. All right, so I've already done all that. My aircraft's weight and balance profile is set up. In this case, I am departing from Lakeland, and we're going to, I think that's Cincinnati, but I'm not positive. Wherever that is. Say it again? Gotcha, thank you. So that's where we're headed. That's my planned route. Again, last minute, somebody comes up to me and says, hey bro, I need a ride. So whatever my current route is, this is displayed along the bottom. I can see my distance, ETE, and fuel burn. This is winds at the time of my departure. I'm going to send this to my flights tab so I can start to make those weight and balance changes. Send this over to my flights tab, and this is my main flight screen. Again, anything here can be edited as part of my flight planning. I'm going to scroll down to my weight and balance information. And depending on your account and depending on your subscription level, this workflow may be slightly different. From this screen, because I'm a Performance Plus subscriber, I can just add individuals. I can just start adding individuals from here. If I tap on weight and balance, this will open up my weight and balance CG envelope. And this is a dynamic representation of my CG. So as I start adding payload, passengers, cargo, et cetera, this will shift. I'm going to walk you through that. I want to show you one thing. This is the reason I'm showing this is so that you can get an idea of how you can learn more about things you don't know about in ForeFlight. You'll notice on my screen about halfway down, there's a setting for curtailment options. If you're following along and you have no idea what that is and it doesn't show on your device, this is for business subscribers only, so you probably don't see it. For the sake of argument, let's say you were using ForeFlight and you saw something, you have no idea what it is. And you're like, this is new, I have no clue what this is. We have all this documentation in the app itself. I'm going to go over to my Documents tab, and you'll notice in my Documents tab, I have my pilot's guide. If you've never downloaded it, do this, because this is the POH for ForeFlight. It literally has everything you need to know. You can just search for something. What I'm looking for, though, is just below that. We do have a ForeFlight weight and balance guide. You'll notice there's a ForeFlight checklist guide. There's a ForeFlight logbook guide. So if there's specific things you're curious about, we do have that documentation. I'm just going to go ahead and open up my weight and balance guide. I'm going to do a search function, and I've searched for curtailment, and here's the description of what my curtailment options are. In this scenario, they are irrelevant to me, so I can safely ignore them. I just wanted to show that this is how you could get information about things in the app if you're not certain what it is. So I've just gone back to my weight and balance envelope, and I've scrolled down a little bit. I can see my representation of my takeoff weight and of my landing weight. Currently, my only passenger is, well, it's just me. I've set this up with just myself, 158 pounds and 25 pounds of cargo, so it's me in a backpack. I'm starting to add more individuals. I'm going to tap on my passengers, and you can see our standard weights will always be defaulted here. These can be changed in settings. So standard weights are 205 for men, 184 for women, 87 for children. For the sake of argument, if you have new friends who want to fly with you and you're uncomfortable asking what they weigh, and you look at them, you're like, yeah, they're about 205. Just go ahead and use the standard weight. I mean, worst case scenario, worst case scenario. If you overestimate, it's fine. You just don't want to underestimate. But if you're not comfortable asking their weight, you can just go ahead and use those standard weights. If you fly with the same people all the time, there's some other things we can do. In this example, I just added 2 standard weight males and a standard weight female. I've also added some cargo. I think I added 150 pounds. Let's say they're bringing their bags with them, whatever they have with them. You'll notice I got some errors across the top. Like most things in life, red means bad, so I'll go ahead and I'll tap on red. I'll go ahead and see what my errors are, and I can see my ramp weight and my takeoff weight limits are exceeded. So I need to make some adjustments. Million different ways we can do this. I can ask my passengers what they weigh. Maybe they don't weigh 205. Maybe if I ask them their real weights, I'll lose that 23.5 pounds. Maybe I can ask them to bring less stuff. Like, hey man, you brought 150 pounds of stuff. That's too much stuff. Whatever you're going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume I'm uncomfortable asking my passengers their actual weights, and I'm uncomfortable asking them to leave anything behind. So I'm going to see, is there a way I can adjust my flight plan to get within safe, in this case, my safe takeoff weight limit. What I'm going to look at is my performance profiles. Right now, I'm operating at 75% full lean. I'll tap on that field. And again, this is going to be based on how your aircraft is set up. If you do not have these set up, this is something we can help you do. This is templated from ForeFlight. We've completed this information for this aircraft. I'll go ahead and tap on my 65% full lean. Warning has gone away because now I'm using and requiring less fuel. And apparently I've shed enough fuel where I've lost at least 23.5 pounds without changing my cargo, without asking anyone what they weigh and changing those weights. I'm going to scroll back to my CG envelope, and you can see I'm right on the edge. I'm right on the edge, but I'm within limits. So maybe they're still a little sketchy about being this close to your limits. You can make some changes on the margin. Let's say I'm good to go with this. That's how we can add an extra passenger. If you were doing this in real time, by the way, that's probably a 90-second workflow. It took me longer because I'm explaining it step by step. So this last one, I'm sorry, not last one. This next one is custom route building. So this is, there are different ways to do this, and I'm going to build a custom route from, I got this mixed up. If someone knows, tell me, is this Sioux City or Sioux Falls? Sioux City, thank you. So I'm going from Sioux City here into Osh. I'm going to build my route out, and I'm going to try to build it out to match my FISC arrival instructions in the AirVenture notifications. I'm starting with just a direct route from Sioux City straight into Osh, nothing fancy. Hit 2 airports, departure destination, that's automatically populated. So as part of my planning, I'm just glancing at the map, and I've noticed I'm going through some, in this case, a couple of MOAs. I need to verify, am I okay to pass through these MOAs? Is this something that's going to be a problem for me? A couple different ways we can brief this. We can tap and hold on any particular airspace. Tap and hold, right-hand side of the screen, the details tab for that MOA will appear. That's it right there. I can see that this is active from 8,000 to 17,999 feet. If I'm going to be flying below 8,000 feet, I can probably safely ignore this. If I want to see more information, I'll just tap on details, and this goes with any airspace, any MOA. So that's my, that's my upper and lower limit there. I can also see this in my profile view, and this may be a little easier. In my profile view, I can see that airspace if I'm a Pro Plus or Performance Plus subscriber, and I can do that by tapping on Profile. And it's a little hard to see because it's purple on black, but this is that MOA, and I can see at my planned altitude, in this case at 6,000 feet, I'm fine. I'm going to go below that MOA. I don't need to worry about it. If you've already glanced towards the right of the screen, though, you'll notice there is some MOA that I will be busting, and I need to plan around that. I either need to see, is this active, or do I need to avoid this? In the profile view, just like in the map, if you tap on anything, if we tap on any airspace, that will bring up that information. The map will be recentered on that MOA. I can see I've highlighted that MOA right there. That MOA is active 500 feet to 17,999. So my cruise altitude I've set at 6,000. That's going to be no good. I need to avoid this MOA. Couple different ways we can do this. You can drag the route around and just rubber band it. You can tap and hold and add a new point, but I'm just going to go ahead and avoid that MOA, so I'm not going to violate that MOA. I've gone around the lateral bounds, and I'm going to avoid that, and I'm going to continue my route planning. Again, you can do that by just tapping and holding on the route, dragging it down, tap and hold on the map, and just add a location. That's what I did. So I'm going to tap my airspace again, and now I can see in both examples, I'm below that MOA. So as far as that goes, I'm safe. I've opened up my layers in my lower left-hand corner. The one I want to look at now is my reported turbulence layer. This is very new. If you haven't seen this yet, this came out within the last, I believe, 6 weeks. If you're a Pro or Performance Plus subscriber and you have a registered Century or Century Plus, you have access to this already. If you don't have access to it and you want to learn some more about how to get access to it, just come talk to us. And what this will do is if I activate this layer, these are reported turbulence from pilots during, well, I'll show you the timestamps in a moment, but this is real reported turbulence, and it's not like a PIREP. This is not a pilot who landed and then filled out a form saying, I experienced turbulence at this time. We pull this from the Century. So if your Century all of a sudden experiences turbulence, we will show that on our map layer. That's why if you have a Century, there's no additional cost for the reported turbulence layer. You can access this in the map too. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So we can see all of the reported turbulence as people, in this case, fly in and around Osh. You can see an idea of its light, moderate, severe, etc. Tapping on any of those icons will bring up the details. So we can see the timestamp, we can see the type of aircraft, the wake category, all of that information is displayed there. So what I want to look at now is I've built my basic route into Osh. I've avoided those MOAs. I want to look at the information I need to arrive into Osh using the information to make sure I arrive here safely and as per the instructions. I'm going to go back to my Documents tab. In my ForeFlight drawer, if you haven't yet opened this, we do have the Oshkosh 2024 notice here. I'm going to go ahead and open that. You can read through this in its entirety. Maybe you already have. I'm just going to look at my VFR arrival procedures. I'm going to navigate to that part of the notification. We're going to read up on the FISC arrival. I'm just going to zoom in to make that a little clearer. If you're following along, you can do the same thing. I'm going to use my annotation tool to highlight key information about the FISC arrival. I'm going to use this to build my custom route. So from here, there's several different ways we can do this. You'll notice there is here it is. There's a mention here that the transition starts at the city of Endeavor, which is 47 miles southwest of Osh. I can manually start entering in these points. There's a quicker way. I'm going to show you the slow way first. The very first thing I could do is use my ruler tool. It's 2 fingers on the map. Spread your fingers apart. You'll get a ruler. I'm going to just spread that out until I get to 47 nautical miles southwest of Osh. And right about that point should be Endeavor. That's not really hyper exact, but maybe it's good enough. That's one way we could do it. Rather than do this, though, there's a faster way. In that notification, it gives me the name of a VFR waypoint for the Endeavor Bridge transition. I'm just going to open up my search drawer and type in the name of that waypoint. That's what I'm looking for. And then I can just use that specific VFR reporting point to build my route more accurately. I'll tap on that. And now I'm starting to build a route starting at that transition point. I'll basically repeat this process as I build that out. So a couple different ways, again, you can do this. I'm going to show you a slow way, then a fast way. Back in my notification, we see the next point is going to be Puckaway Lake, and we're given a track and a distance for how to get to and find that lake. I'm going to go back to my flight plan drawer, and this is a feature that you can use with any published position, so waypoint, nav aid, airport, coordinates. And the workflow is going to be the name of that position or coordinate slash the track slash the distance in nautical miles. So what I've done is Victor Papa Echo November Victor slash 095 slash 11. And what that will do is automatically plot a point on the map on a track of 095 at a distance of, at a distance of 11 nautical miles from that point. That's what it looks, that's what it looks like on the map. You can see this is listed here, exactly what I entered in my flight plan drawer. If you were to do this and file this with ATC, this point would be reported as latitude, longitude. A lot of the people who find utility for this function are doing like search and rescue, CAP kind of stuff. So this may not actually apply to all of you, but is available to anyone at any point, any coordinate. Rather than do that, there's another VFR reporting point. I'm just going to enter in that. So I'm just building in my route based on the VFR waypoints that are in my FISC arrival notification. And essentially, I'm just going to build this out. So I'm going to build that arrival along with those VFR waypoints. I'm just going to build this out as per the notification. I've zoomed in a little bit. I'm looking at Green Lake here, Ripon. Is it Ripon or Ripon? Cool. Ripon. All right, I'm going to use that for my next point there. There is a specific mention in that documentation that states you should follow the railroad tracks northeast from Ripon to Fisk. Right now on my map, I just have a straight line from Ripon to Fisk. I can't see my railroad tracks, but I want to make sure I'm following them. I want to make sure I'm following the rules. I'm going to go ahead and open up the VFR settings for my aeronautical map drawer. I'll tap on that little icon. Once you open that up, you'll see a little icon that looks like an interstate sign. That's our cultural elements symbol. We'll toggle that on, and I'm going to see a bunch of stuff appears. I have city names. I have the lake names. I do not see railroads, so I need to continue to adjust my settings. I'll go ahead and tap on the three dots, the ellipses, and I'll look at cultural elements. And I can see I have railroads, power lines, and urban areas toggled off. I'm going to turn them all on. I can see them now displayed on, now displayed on my map, and I'm not exactly following that railroad. So maybe I'm a stickler, and I want to make sure I'm doing exactly what I'm told to do. I'm going to rubber band my route over to the railroad. I'm going to lift up my finger. I'm going to add that point. So now I'm more closely following that railroad. So I'm trying to match the instructions in the notification as closely as possible. The next element, next thing you're told to do is of the Fisk arrival is to follow Fisk Avenue eastbound with an emphasis on not mistaking Highway 44 for Fisk Avenue. So that's this area right here. There's Highway 44. I want to build this out to be as exact as possible in the most efficient way possible. I'm going to activate my aerial imagery layer so I can get an idea of what this is satellite view, what this looks like. There is a note that follows that says there's a microwave tower 1 mile east of Fisk, and you're to stay north of the tower and south of Fisk Avenue. I've turned on my obstacle layer, and I saw that there was an obstacle. It's right there, and I just turned on I activated my ruler to check what is the distance of that obstacle from the city of Fisk. And the distance of that obstacle is 1 nautical mile east of Fisk. There's Fisk Avenue, there's the microwave tower. I want to stay between them. So I'm going to make a custom waypoint by just tapping and holding between those 2 points. I'll add that custom waypoint. You can save this as a user waypoint with a custom name so it's more easy to access later. And that's what I've done. I'm just saving that as a custom waypoint, and that's it right there. Again, when I file this flight plan, this will be reported as a latitude, longitude. This is just a partial route. If you haven't noticed, I never put in a departure airport. I've just put in that transit, the Fisk arrival. That's all I have in here. So I'm going to save this, and the reason I'm going to save this, if you've never saved routes in ForeFlight, this is how you do it. Open up the flight plan drawer, tap on the star icon, and now when I'm flying from Sioux City, I'm en route and I've confirmed this is the arrival procedure I will be utilizing. I want to quickly now put this on ForeFlight. So this is me flying along right there. I'm gonna go ahead and tap on my favorites and recents right there. Oh, that was in the wrong place. It's right there. That's where it should have been. I'm going to tap on my favorites and recents, and you'll notice at the very bottom, this is what I just saved. I can tap on that. That will erase anything that's in my flight plan drawer, populate that with that arrival. Now, I want to make this useful so I can fly this. This is another shortcut in ForeFlight. Hopefully you all know about it, but if you don't, this will become very, very useful to you. I'm going to go ahead and tap on the first route element. That's my Endeavor Bridge transition. I'm going to insert before. Insert before. Brings up my pop-up keypad. I'm just going to type the letter D. Anytime in ForeFlight you type the letter D, ForeFlight recognizes you are asking us to tell you how to get somewhere from your current location. This creates an automatic direct to. So D space, this will now populate that route from where I was flying into my FISC arrival. So it's all set up there while I was in the air. You can do this for multiple partial routes. Whatever it ends up being as you're in the air, you can just quickly go ahead and activate that. So I did all of that in ForeFlight Mobile. That's probably how you guys will be doing it. If you use something like Google Earth Pro, you can do this there too. And there's some additional features that may come in, you may find useful. So in Google Earth Pro, I'm just going to build this out. You can see these are just the different points here. And I'm going to export this as a KML or KMZ file. These can be read directly into ForeFlight. Once they're imported, this is that same Google Earth layer, just imported here into ForeFlight. Once that's imported, I can interact with these the same way I would any waypoint, any airport. Just tap on it. Information pane slides in on the right-hand side. What is different is you will see there is, a more details field. This is where on Google Earth, or Google Maps too, but Google Earth is better. On Google Earth, you can put in additional information. You can access this in flight. You can share these with other people too to access. What I did, I put in imagery. So this is what that might look like at that point. This imagery is literally just satellite imagery. If you come to our Sims presentation, you'll see how you can use this as a flight simulator to get imagery that really looks like at this altitude on this track. This is what this should look like. Or if you've already flown this, you want to share this with people, you can take a picture and just append this to that image. So that's all of that. All right, so I am running a little out of time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit. So our next scenario is a single pilot IFR approach into Osh. And I'm just going to talk about how as someone flying by themselves into this approach, we can efficiently and quickly start to process this information. So we're flying our approach here into Osh. I'm approaching from the south. Again, I'm showing with my extended center lines. My own ship is depicted along with my distance rings. I'm ready to brief my approach procedure. I've been in contact with ATC. I know what it is I'm going to do. I'm going to start in my plates tab, and I've pulled up my FAA plate for the ILS approach into runway 36, and I notice there are some very detailed notes here about altimeter settings at the very top of this. I'm just going to zoom in to make that a little more clear. I can see that if I don't receive the local altimeter setting, I'm to use the Fond du Lac altimeter setting, increase my decision altitude by 31 feet, my minimum descent altitude by 40 feet, my visibility is by 1/4 mile. There's more changes to make if the runway alignment indicator lights are inoperative, and I can see some authorized changes to my runway visual range when and if I'm using the Fond du Lac altimeter setting. So all that information is there in the, on the plate. That's under the plates tab. I'm going to show you we can access that in some other places. What I'm looking at here is my airports tab. Find the same information. I'm just going to use the JEP chart for that exact same plate. This might give you a quick idea of how you can compare and contrast how those plates look. This is that JEP approach plate into that runway and that procedure. I'm a Pro or Performance Plus subscriber, so I will be geo-referenced on the plate. I can see where I am reference to all of that information. At the very bottom of my JEP plate, I can see all my RVRs, my various aircraft category, displayed using the local or the Fond du Lac altimeter settings. So this is already on the plate. I don't have to make those conversions. Again, this is the Jeppesen plate. This is already there. That's one of the advantages of Jeppesen plates. Another place we can access this directly in our flight plan drawer. Tap on our procedure advisor. I already showed this. Select the type of procedure you're looking for. Select your desired approach. Select your transition. Make any adjustments here if you are a Performance Plus subscriber. We can make augmented IFR procedures, so we can make changes here. So if I'm using Fond du Lac, I can just tap on that. This is for Performance Plus subscribers only. So I'm going to quickly go through, make any adjustments I need based on current equipment, any other changes that I know of at that airport. I'm using the Fond du Lac altimeter setting. Note that ForeFlight has already adjusted my decision altitude and decision height for me. Once I'm ready, I'm going to tap on Add to Route, and that procedure is added to my route. I do have the ability to see my aircraft because I'm a Pro or Performance Plus subscriber, and that plate will be a Jeppesen or FAA plate depending on your subscriptions. I want to look at some of my other tools available to me. I'm going to enable my instrument panel. I'll go ahead and tap on my instrument panel tool. My instrument panel is displayed across the bottom. All of you have used this. Not everyone knows this can be customized. If there's a tool or instrument displaying that is irrelevant to you, just tap on it. A pop-up window will appear and you can change that tool. So I'm going to replace my nearest nav aid. I'm going to tap on that, and I'm going to replace this with my cross-track error. Tap on that. Now that is replaced. I'm now showing cross-track error instrument. Again, you can do this with any of those instruments there, so however matches your way of flying, go ahead and do that. I'm going to continue to prepare for my approach and landing by opening up my checklist tab. I've navigated over to my checklist. Here I can review custom and pre-built checklists for my aircraft. What I want to do is I'm just going to look at my, scroll down, I'm going to look at my descent checklist for my aircraft. So this is just all part of preparing for my approach, preparing for my descent. You can use the speak feature if you've never used this. Again, if you're flying by yourself and you want something other than you looking at the checklist, the speak feature will automatically read these aloud for you. So I'll go ahead and tap on speak. We may be able to hear it go. Let me try that again. No, I'll have to fix that. But you'll be able to hear the iPad read aloud to you what those steps are. So I've briefed my approach plate. I separately completed my descent checklist, and I want to just look up some more information about that airport. Just like before, I'll tap on it. I'm going to look at my information, and I can pull up all my frequencies I need: ground, tower, ATIS, whatever. If you do receive something like vectors to final or additional information you need to take note of, we can do that directly on our map or on the plate with the annotation tool. Those annotations will persist on the map until you delete them. It is a common thing that happens at these shows where people come up with an iPad and there's lots of red marks on it and they don't know how to get rid of them. The reason is because we save these. You have to manually delete them. So after every flight, if you've done something like this, just make sure you take the time to erase it, because otherwise it will stay forever. All right, now we're going to look at, and again, I'm going very quickly through this, what might happen, how we can use ForeFlight in the event of an emergency. So we're on a flight here from Martha's Vineyard, flying west. Everything is fine. Nothing is wrong. Weather is great. Everything's hunky-dory. I'm going to enable some features. I would enable these before you leave, but in this scenario, I'm enabling them after I've already taken off, after I'm already airborne. I'm going to tap on my map settings, and what I want to have enabled at a minimum is my glide advisor. I would recommend leaving this on all the time and making sure it's on all the time, but you do you, whatever you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and enable my glide advisor, and I'm sure you've all seen this in action before. But the glide advisor will show us the glide range for your aircraft based on aircraft type, current airspeed, current altitude, terrain, and winds aloft. All of that is taken into account when we display your glide range. In the lower right-hand corner, this will always persist to show you what your glide speed is, what your ideal glide speed is. This cannot be toggled off. We had a person come to the booth at a previous show who was adamant that they didn't want to see that. They wanted to toggle it off. I don't know why, but you can't. You can't toggle that off. All right, so you're all set up in your aircraft. You're cruising along. Your glide rings are active. Everything's good to go. All of a sudden, there is some sort of emergency. It can be anything. For my scenario, I'm going to imagine the worst, maybe hopefully the worst case scenario, my engine has failed. Minute that happens, the second that happens, you can quickly glance down, see what your ideal glide speed is. I would assume that all of you know the ideal glide speed of your aircraft. If you're flying a new aircraft and you don't know, it will be displayed there. At a quick glance, you can look at that. If you're flying with a passenger and they're using the ForeFlight, they're looking at the iPad, they can just tell you. They can shout out 73 knots, whatever that is. So, and I'm going to go through this even quicker. Hopefully, it's like the pace of what an emergency might be. If my engine has failed, I verified my glide speed. I'm going to bring up my checklist. I want to bring up my emergency procedures checklist. I've toggled on checklist. This is something that has always been there, but a lot of people just don't notice is there. Along the top, we do have an emergency button. If you tap on that red button, you'll be instantly transported to all of our emergency checklist categories. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that. My emergency checklists are now displayed. And I'm going to select the appropriate emergency checklist from that drop-down. Again, if you're flying with somebody, this might be a great example of teamwork. If you're flying by yourself, good luck. So I'm going to open up my engine failure during flight checklist. I'm going to tap on that, and I'm going to run through this. Again, if you're flying by yourself, we can use the speak feature. If you're connected to your Bluetooth, you should be able to hear that. We'll tap on speak. We are going to show it. Let's hear.
Airspeed, 68 kilometers.
That's loud. I didn't know that was that loud. I'm sorry. But it will go through each of those for you. So again, if you're by yourself and hopefully you're not panicking, but you're in a high pressure situation, you can have your iPad read it to you. If you don't have a Bluetooth connected device, I can't imagine you would hear it though. Aircraft tend to be very loud in the cockpit. So this would probably only have practicality for that. So I'm back on my map tabs. I'm going to look at airports within my glide range. At a quick glance, I can see that I have several within my glide range. I have my categories displayed, so I can see this is reporting VFR. If we had just passed an airport, I would know what the weather was like at that. Maybe I'd just backtrack. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on that airport. You can quickly pull up comms information. You can call ahead, let them know you're coming in hot, engine failure, what runway you're coming in on. All of that information can be pulled up right here. And this is the same workflow I did in a non-emergency situation. If you want to, we can look at the runways. We can see maybe we know, or maybe we're worried that one of those runways is not long enough. Maybe there's a grass strip, we'd rather land on asphalt, something like that. We can see in this example, 4,650 feet is fine. We're good with that. We can, if you need to, you can get a better estimate of your distance by using that ruler tool. You can start to get turned towards that airport. All of this stuff, just make sure you have all the information you need to safely approach that airport. If you want to, this might be a step you don't actually bother with. At this point, you may just point your plane towards the runway and start headed there. But if you did have a passenger, you want to make sure you're getting all the information. We'll go ahead and hit direct to. I see that pop up for my, in this case it's ASOS, but I can start turning my aircraft. I can start getting those alerts. If I needed to, again, this is probably not something you do in the case of an engine failure, but if it's a different type of failure, maybe you would. I can look at my approach. I can look at traffic patterns. It's going to go through to the same thing I did earlier. Make a straight in approach. My glide ring is displayed there. I can see I am approaching. It looks like I should safely make that runway. You can activate any additional layers you want. Maybe I want to see what's going on with traffic. Is anyone near there as I'm making my approach? Maybe your radios are dead also. You just want to get an idea of what's going on. It looks like traffic won't be a problem. I can turn on my synthetic vision. I can get an idea if I'm lined up with the runway. It looks like I'm pretty close. I can see any obstacles, and I can use all that as I glide down to my runway, hopefully safely and without incident. All right, so I got 4 minutes left. If you need any issues, if you have any issues, email us at team@foreflight.com. You can access our pilot's guide, foreflight.com/videos. In the app, there is now a Discover tab that also has all our videos. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll show it to you. It just launched a couple weeks ago. If you have any questions, just come on up, because I got to pack up for the next person. And thank everyone for your time. Come see us over in our booth.